But first, let's welcome in our powerhouse panel. We start with reporter for the Daily Caller and Newsmax contributor Chrissy Clark, who will be joining us in a moment. Best-selling author and political analyst Mark Halperin is here, and Project 21 National Advisory Board member and principal at Redtail Strategies, Christopher Arps, with us this morning. This weekend, we saw a lot of reporting that basically indicates that this whole situation over Roe v. Wade, whenever we get the decision, whatever that decision is, this is not going to be good for Republican candidates in battleground districts, in battleground states, at all levels. Politico, who coincidentally was where this 89-page document was leaked last Monday, they put out an article saying the threat to Roe puts GOP on defense in 2022 battlegrounds, and many on the left, including Senator Amy Klobuchar, they think that this leaked draft will actually drive people out to vote on November 8th. Take a listen.
If we are not successful, then we go to the ballot box. We march straight to the ballot box. And the women of this country and the men who stand with them will vote like they've never voted before, because this is 50 years of rights in a leaked opinion where Justice Alito is literally not just taking us back to the 1950s. He's taking us back to the 1850s.
All right, panel, good to see you this morning. Mark, Chris, great to have you on. Mark, curious what your thoughts are on that. We know the Democrats are all too eager to change the subject. They haven't had a lot good to talk about, really, throughout the entirety of Joe Biden's time in office. Does this provide them that opportunity? And do you believe Amy Klobuchar? Do we see, voters out in November that might not have voted in an off-year election?
Good morning, everyone. Look, I think, Rob, the only right answer is too soon to say. This is clearly, as you said, a change of subject opportunity for the Democrats. But I think we need to see what's in the actual opinion. How does it play out? What other issues come to the fore? I think right now, the safest thing to say, and I know you'll treat it as a cop-out, is this is going to have a bigger impact than Republicans fear, but not as big an impact as Democrats are claiming.
Chris, can you try to make sense of what Mark just said? I'm not totally clear.
I think that we will probably see a rise in Democratic voters in the fall, but I don't think that it's going to overdo what's going on with the economy. We see gasoline prices at $6 and $7 a gallon. We see store shelves that are empty. We're now seeing a baby formula shortage. Protesting in front of Catholic churches. I think they're going to overreach on this.
Yeah, by the way, the national average for a gallon of gas today, $4.32 a gallon. 1 year ago today, $2.96 a gallon. And if you're a trucker, if you're driving one of those big rigs, an 18-wheeler, you are paying today $5.54 a gallon, more than $2 more than you were paying 1 year ago today. Pretty unbelievable. And think about it, those 18-wheelers, some of them have got 250-gallon tanks. So that's why things on store shelves are costing so much more than they were not that long ago. It's all connected. Mark, this weekend, Chris just brought this up. So we are now seeing protests outside the private homes of members of the Supreme Court. Brett Kavanaugh and John Roberts, they had protesters outside their homes all day, all night over the weekend. One lives in Virginia, where there's a law against protesting outside somebody's house. So technically you could say these protesters are breaking the law. And then Justice Kavanaugh lives in Maryland, where there is not a law. I'm wondering, we talked about this on Friday. They've got young kids. Amy Coney Barrett has got young kids as well. By doxing these judges, by their personal addresses being leaked out, the protesters are trying to get into their heads, maybe not for this decision. I think too much is being made about this decision. It's future decisions. It's future decisions. And how scary is that? Because if you're really close on something, if it's going to be another 5-4 decision, you might not vote the way you initially thought you might vote because you don't want to deal with the hassle of protesters outside your house. What do you make of this, Mark?
Well, I've called for the presumption of grace to be extended by both sides. This is a sensitive and tough matter. And there's nothing about the presumption of grace involved with going to somebody's home. I don't care who it is or what the circumstances are. That's their private space, their family space. I recognize how passionate people are. But I'd like the White House to, having failed to denounce this last week, I'd like the White House to denounce it this week. If people want to protest, go to the court, go to other public places, don't go to somebody's house. And that's true of both sides. And it's a horrible development. And I hope the left considers where this might lead and back off that particular tactic to express their point of view.
Let's welcome in Daily Caller reporter and Newsmax contributor Chrissy Clark. Chrissy, we saw massive pro-abortion protests, rallies really, happening in red states over the weekend, which might surprise you. Huge one in Houston, Texas this weekend. Democrats are trying to turn these rallies into opportunities to register voters ahead of the midterms. What do you make of that?
I mean, that's not surprising. Are we kidding? That's their entire ploy right now, is knocking door to door in college towns in order to bolster their voting roster. That's their ploy. What I will say is I definitely agree with Chris on this. This is something that I think you'll see an uptake in Democratic voters, but it's not something that's going to drive people out to the poll on either side. I don't think you're going to see a massive pro-life push that's going to get people to the polls in a midterm election. I think if this was a presidential election, maybe we'd see a difference, but no one's going to be coming out for the midterm elections for an issue that they might have to deal with in the future, particularly if they're pro-choice.
All right. I want to talk about the leaker. This is Mark's favorite topic. It has been for the last week. Again, this thing leaked to Politico around 8:30 a.m. or p.m. Eastern time last Monday night. So tonight we're about a week away. We do not know who this leaker is yet. The way I'm now looking at this is how this changes sort of the internal workings at the Supreme Court. It used to be where these judges could work with their clerks. Each justice has 4 clerks. There are 36 at the Supreme Court in all, and they could just email back and forth. Decisions were emailed back and forth before they were issued as final. This changes that forever. Not to mention, these justices are all 9 have requested security. Mark, how big a deal is it that the American people at least know the identity of this leaker so we can move on and make sure that this doesn't happen again with another decision, another important decision?
I don't know that it matters that much to the public who the leaker is. And I think the more important thing is the court's going to have to institute more stringent security measures to avoid leaking or to make it less likely that someone does it, because there'll be accountability and watermarks and other systems. But I don't know that the identity of the leaker really matters to most people.
Mark, do you agree? Chris, rather, do you agree with Mark?
I think that the identity of this leaker must be found. I think it destroys the collegiality of the court. We always hear that even though these justices are on opposite sides of the political spectrum, outside of that, they all get along well and trust each other. And I think that destroys that. And I think if we really wanted to find out who the leaker was, we can.
Chrissy,
I think it's the will more than anything.
Yeah, I'm with you. Chrissy, where are you now that we've had a weekend to think about this leaker? And I thought maybe, all right, maybe this weekend we'll get a name. Maybe this weekend somebody will be hauled away from the Supreme Court for doing this, charged with something. What do you make of where we are now? A week later, no idea who this person is.
I think regardless of who this person is, their political motives clearly backfired. This is somebody who, if this is a role law clerk, you have to assume that they thought pro-lifers are so vicious, so awful, that they decided it'd be a great how vicious the pro-choice side can be as well. I just don't understand. The political motives of this seem very skewed to me. The timing of this seems very skewed to me. I think we have to be questioning how long Politico sat on this, because stories like this don't not go through a legal team. There are a lot of other things to be questioned outside of just who the leaker is.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the coordination, there's a huge coordination element to this. You know, Politico reporting this weekend that Democrats are buying up huge ad buys in key states with close Senate races in particular to keep the Senate blue. Ohio, Pennsylvania, Arizona, New Hampshire, Georgia. That primary is right around the corner now. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out, but it does seem like this was coordinated with Politico, with this leaker, and the Democrats. All right, panel, good start to the week. We will pick this back up top of the hour. Looking forward to that. Chrissy Clark, Mark Halperin, Chris Arps, thanks so much.